Have you ever noticed how men in certain situations seem to easily garner support for leadership roles, while women will face skepticism and questions about their behavior? Gender discrimination isn't limited to leadership, it's a bias that exists in many roles that society still views as male dominated. Hi, I'm Harlow Reed, creator of the HR Insider. Welcome to our Ask an HR Pro series, where we get questions from people about their specific HR dilemmas and we give input and feedback on the questions they ask. In my previous video, Gender Discrimination Lessons from the Twitter Layoffs, we explored how discrimination can play out at the corporate level. Today, we're taking a closer look at an individual experience, a real life scenario that reveals the challenges women often face in breaking these barriers. Stick around to learn how human resources should handle these situations and how you can advocate for yourself. This post is from the Ask HR Reddit and it comes from Colin Wines 24. And it reads, my boss is restricting jobs because I'm a woman. I work in a safety related construction company where it is mandatory to drive company trucks to sites and use vehicles in relation to our job. Another female coworker had a minor accident. And it continues, another female coworker had a minor accident with one of the larger trucks, and our boss is withholding all jobs with larger trucks from all women in a notion that women can't drive. This has to be discrimination, correct? How and what can I do about this? I'm missing out on certain jobs that would pay more because of this. One of the responses came from Biffer09, who is a PHR. This is someone who is a professional human resources certified. And the response reads, I mean, if you have a driver's license and or CDL, then your governing body says you can drive. So it is not a bona fide job requirement that you be a male to drive a truck. File a formal complaint and escalate it to the EEOC if you are retaliated against or nothing has changed. Make sure you file your complaints in writing and save a copy and any responses for yourself. Here's another response from No Mouse 5125. If you have to go outside of the organization for a solution, it will be important that you have documentation about the specific instances when you or other women were denied jobs involving larger trucks. Don't forget to include dates, times, and details of conversations with your boss or others, especially those in leadership, regarding this policy. Be sure to write down any financial loss, Be sure to write down any financial loss or professional opportunities missed because of this practice or policy. Ask for any criteria that is being used to assign truck related jobs. If the response directly or indirectly ties job assignments to gender, you have a strong claim, and I would contact the EEOC. OP received a lot of good responses to her question. I pulled out the two that I felt were most noteworthy. I think No Mouse 5125 provided a much more holistic response. But even when you are trying to figure out what to do, confronting discrimination is undeniably one of the most challenging things that you will face. You can rely on your job to support yourself. You can rely on your job to support your family. You go to your job, let's say if you're an accountant, you're a truck driver, you go to the office, you go to the job to drive trucks. You go to an accountant goes to the job, to count beans, as they say. No one goes to the job to deal with discrimination and workplace challenges. So if it's something that you've never dealt with before, it can be very daunting, especially when you've never, as I said, dealt with it before and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to turn. And most importantly, most people will tell you to go to HR. But what if you don't know if you can trust your HR department? I actually discussed this trust dynamic in my video, HR Advocate or Enemy, where I explain when human resources departments can be a resource versus a hindrance. So check out this video to learn more about this topic. Let's say you think that HR is there to support employees. You have a very strong um, advocate in human resources, and you want to consult with them about what is going on in terms of discrimination in the workplace. Reaching out to them can still feel overwhelming and scary because you don't know the outcome. You don't know how things are going to go. You've never dealt with it before, and you're not sure what the best course of action is. But I am here to tell you that sitting in silence and tolerating unfair treatment not only enables bad behavior and allows it to continue, but it perpetuates it for others too. It perpetuates it for not just you, other people in the workforce who may be going through similar or even worse circumstances. So it's always better to avoid allowing the workplace to affect your health, your mental health, your physical well being. It's always better to take steps to prevent that from happening rather than to sit there and deal with it. When you think about gender discrimination, we know that there are business out there who, unfortunately, businesses that hire women with no intention of fostering fairness, right? No intention of being reasonable. They are driven by unreasonable demands and mean spirited motives. So, what's the deal? How do you protect yourself in these cases? Whenever you are confronted with discrimination, as difficult as it may be, before you react, you need to think. You need to sit down and come up with a plan. Oftentimes, if you are someone who has never dealt with something like this, you need to talk to other people. Let's go through some of what your options are. The first thing is if you have seen coworkers who have suffered under leadership similar to you, you could certainly try to talk with those coworkers so that you can all sort of determine what the best course of action is. But oftentimes, if you're dealing with discrimination, there's also other toxic things going on in the workplace. You've got fear, you've got bully, you've got a hostile work environment. You just got the gamut. In my experience, you're never going to have just gender discrimination and that's it. You're probably going to be dealing with a lot of different issues if you are facing gender discrimination, especially as blatant as what was described by OP. So rather than going to your coworkers and trying to confide and collaborate with them on what your best course of action should be, it would be better for you to write down what you have witnessed, the dates and the times that you have witnessed it, the people who have also witnessed it. And this is the documentation that can support you as you continue to plan what your next course of action should be. So, one of the things to consider is consulting with an HR consultant. A lot of people will tell you to go to a lawyer. As someone with legal training, let me explain to you why I don't recommend that. Now, if you can find somebody who's an HR consultant and a lawyer, then you've just hit your pot of gold. I mean, that's someone who's going to understand both dynamics. But the reason why I don't recommend you immediately go to a lawyer if you're having a workplace issue is that lawyers understand the courtroom and they understand the facts that are going to substantiate any claims that you have. Business operations and the way things work and function in the workplace is so dissimilar to how it functions in a courtroom. In a courtroom, you're looking to prove whatever the claim is, whatever allegation exists, whatever the law says the employer has to do and the employer has not done. So those are facts that are going to be used to support how the employer has violated the law. In a business world, Your employer is not going to look at this as a legal issue. They're going to look at it as, how do we resolve this? What's the best solution? What's the best outcome? And an HR consultant, someone who's been in the workplace for many years working as an HR professional, who is a trusted advisor, they are someone who is going to know what obligations your employer has. Now, are they going to know everything about your employer? Absolutely not. But they can look at your policies, they can ask you questions, they can understand business operations. And that is a great place to start. Just talking with someone who is knowledgeable about human resources. A lawyer will probably charge you $350 an hour. An HR consultant, you're probably going to look at $100 an hour, $150 an hour. Someone who can give you the best path forward. And these are things that are going to protect you so that when you go down this path, as I said earlier, you're not going to sit there in discrimination and allow it to affect your mental and physical well-being. You have to do something. So consulting with an HR consultant can help you determine what's the best course of action. How do I line this up so that I am protecting myself as I move forward with addressing this concern? When you get to the point where you're already terminated, that's not the ideal time to talk to an HR consultant. If you have already been terminated from your job and you have dealt with discrimination, you need to consult with an HR lawyer and watch some of the other videos I have about how to find a good HR lawyer, an employment law attorney. That's who you need to talk to if you have already been terminated. But if you're still an employee, I strongly recommend that you talk with an HR consultant. So that's also one of the things that you have to have on your list of your things that you want to do. Okay. Now, the other thing is to make sure that if you have an advocate, not everybody does, some people do. If you have an advocate in the workplace and it's not somebody that you've tapped into every time the wind blows the wrong way and you're upset about something, because again, you can lose credibility by doing something like that. But if you have an advocate that you have not pull them into your circumstances, and you now have this very serious issue of gender discrimination, this is the time to have a conversation with that advocate. You want to align yourself with people in the organization who can assist you with resolving what the issue is and who can also point you in the right direction. I would say if I had a really strong advocate, I would go to the advocate first before going to HR. As I said, you don't always know if you can trust HR. Let's say in this circumstance, you can. If OP knows she's going to go to HR ultimately and eventually, that sounds great. But she wants to start with that advocate, that person in the office that she knows that she can trust and she can rely on. And again, this is someone who you 100% have no doubt that they will be a support to you and be in your corner. Now, the last thing you want to do in terms of planning is you want to figure out what you are going to do if the whole thing goes south. Guys, there are no guarantees. When you submit a complaint to human resources and that complaint is fully vetted, investigated, and resolved, your supervisor could still have a vendetta against you. There are just some wicked people in the workplace. There's some nastiness in the world, period. So if you are dealing with somebody like that, who no matter what you do, they're going to have a problem with you, they're probably going to have a problem with you whether you complain or don't complain, because they're just a miserable person. They're a miserable leader. How is it that these people get into leadership positions? I don't know, but it happens. And so the last thing I'm going to recommend in terms of your planning is, if this whole thing goes south, meaning you lose your job, okay, you are not going to be compensated immediately. If you lose your job and now you're going to see an employment law attorney to figure out what the best course of action is to be compensated for the violations that your employer has committed against you, not following the rule of law, then it's important for you to know that that's going to take time. So you need to know how you're going to manage things as you try and resolve this with your employer. Go see an employment lawyer if you've already been terminated. Sometimes it can be resolved relatively quickly by just having your lawyer send a nice little letter, an appropriate letter, laying out some of the sufficient facts for your employer to know that this is a legitimate case. Other times that won't work, and you will end up going back and forth. You'll file an EOC claim. That takes time. So just have another option in terms of income. What are you going to do in the meantime if this whole thing goes south and you end up losing your job? Because I know I'd hate for people to be in a position where they go and complain and then they lose their job. The employer is wrong. That's true. But at the same time, you need income. You need to eat. You need a place to live. You have to pay your mortgage. So, it's important to have a plan. Now, if your alternate plan is to find another job and then pursue this legally, you can do that too, but you want to wait until you find that other job before you file your complaint, right? So those are some of the things that you should do to plan for these types of discrimination issues if you are confronted with them. One of my videos entitled When to Go to HR can provide meaningful insight on how to manage situations and advocate for yourself effectively with human resources. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate your support so much, my subscribers, and those of you who have hit the like button. Consider donating via the link in the description box to help create more content on this channel. Together, we are building a community that is strong and understands how to manage the challenges in the workplace with confidence. Do you have a question about your career or a workplace challenge? Add it to the comments or send it in the email in the description box, and it could be featured in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching. I'm Harlow Reed, and I'll see you in the next video.